Hey everybody, Reagan and I wanted to send out a little video to say hello to you, offer a little message, and most of all, thank you for being part of junior high camp this year.
We're so sorry that camp got canceled this year. It's not fair. And it's okay to feel disappointed or sad or angry. Each one of us had something important to bring to camp, a lesson, a gift, a story, or even just your valuable presence. One of the most important things Russell and I wanted to tell you was how deeply loved you are. Loved by our staff, loved by your peers, and loved by this big, powerful, gentle God.
When things don't go our way, it's important to be honest with ourselves about how we're feeling. It's also important to find moments of gratitude and thank God for the beautiful things God has given us. We're also grateful to spend that day and a half with you guys, and we're grateful how you guys showed up for each other. Your kindness, joy, commitment to making Guthrie a sacred place where everyone feels welcome is exactly why camp is such an awesome place to be.
Monday morning, we got to talk about the meaning of shalom. It's that feeling of wholeness that goes beyond just calm or quiet. It's something more profound, more powerful. What we didn't get to tell you was the reason this peace, God's peace, is so powerful is because it is durable. It can withstand the chaos of life, the worries, the fears, the uncertainties, and disappointments that come along with all of the amazing things life brings. This peace that Jesus came to offer is bigger than all of that. Does that mean that we will never experience the hard parts of life? Nope. We definitely still will. But when you commit yourself to following the Son of God, you receive a divine comfort. The Spirit. Ruach. Shalom. Peace.
And does that make much sense? Honestly, no, not really. It's not logical or straightforward. Sometimes life is complex and complicated. This is what Jesus' promised. A peace that passes understandings. In Philippians 4, we hear Paul and Timothy write to an ancient church community who needed to hear message of hope. They wrote, "The Lord is at hand. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything be by prayer and humble request. With praise, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts, your minds in Jesus Christ."
What Paul and his student Timothy are trying to tell the church in Philippi is that they should focus their attention on the beautiful things happening around them and praise God for them. There will always be things in life that disappoint us, but gratitude is the way out.
As many of you know, one of the best traditions at junior high camp is the Trail of Virtues. It is one of my favorite spiritual experiences of all time. On Thursday night, we walk a trail lit by lights around the campground from either Three Crosses or Ball Field, all the way through around the campgrounds, and then we end up in the chapel. Along the way, there's different beads and stations that we collect and pray. And it is a very spiritual experience. I personally have had a whole bunch of experiences where I have felt God's Spirit. And kids have told me that they have felt God's Spirit or they have seen Jesus. It is a good experience, especially when we're able to be out in nature and go close to the tree line. And then Reagan and I invite you to take a walk sometime this week to see if you could get close to nature, to God, in your neighborhood, your local park, and find places along the way to stop and pray. You can do it alone or take a friend with you and pray together.
And your prayers don't have to be complicated. They can be as simple as Jesus. That actually reminds me of a story I wanted to tell you this week. I grew up in the church, and prayer was always a part of my life since I was young, but admittedly, it took me a really long time before I ever felt like I had an understanding of it. I remember when I was 7, I wanted to test God. And so I prayed for a pair of silver cowboy boots and then didn't tell anyone. I waited a week, and after no cowboy boots appeared, I assumed that prayer just didn't work for me, or maybe God didn't work for me. For a lot of my childhood, I felt like prayer was very performative. You use this big and flowery language, and it was something you were supposed to do. You're supposed to pray before a meal. You're supposed to pray before bed. You're supposed to pray at church. I had heard testimonies in Sunday school that people heard the voice of God respond to them, like audibly heard the voice of God. And that was never anything I ever experienced. So I just assumed I was doing it wrong. And then my freshman year of senior high camp, I had a pastor tell us that prayer didn't have to be performative. You could really just talk to God. And honestly, you didn't even have to use words because God knows what's on your heart. So it could be as simple as Jesus. That stuck with me. I started praying conversationally to God all the time. The fall after COVID hit, I felt this deep sense of fear and anxiety and discontent. I was grieving normal, as I'm sure we all were. I prayed every morning on my drive to school that God's peace would find me. And over the weeks, I started honing in on something specific. I started praying for soft music and beautiful lighting, which for me was something I found a lot of comfort in. I had so many great memories from my childhood about singing with my sisters after dark or being at Guthrie and around the campfire. That was a place where I truly felt God's peace. So I started praying. And it wasn't just a single prayer. It was quite literally daily. And after a couple weeks, I started noticing moments. My choir started blending better. I would hear the perfect song as I was going to bed. I started finding myself at concerts and church services where I realized that God was answering my prayer again and again and again. And since then, talking to God has become a pastime for me. I do a lot of driving for work, and you better believe that if I'm not jamming out to worship music, God and I are sitting there yapping. I tell him about what's going on in my day, and I pray for my family and my friends and my clients at work. Everything that goes on in my day is part of the ongoing conversation I'm having with God. And you know what's crazier? I've started learning how to listen for his response. Now, I still don't have a testimony of audibly hearing the voice of God, but I do find God almost every day. And the way that I receive God takes a little bit more observation. Oftentimes it's some kind of sign, a license plate that refers to something God and I were just talking about, or a certain cloud type or color or song that I associate with God. I am always watching. And the more you watch, the more you find. I'm watching because I know that God is in everything. It's easy for me to talk to God now because we've established a relationship and I trust him with everything. If you want a relationship like that, it requires communication and effort. When I prayed for those silver boots, I was trying to test God. And it wasn't that God isn't capable of making those boots appear, it's that I had some other learning I needed to do. Praying to God isn't like wishing on a genie. You don't just get whatever you ask for. If your parents gave you everything you ever asked for, do you think you would turn out well? No. You would be spoiled, and you wouldn't know how to work through challenges. Guys, God has a plan for us. And sometimes it involves things we would rather not go through. I cannot promise that life will be easy. In fact, it is quite likely it will be the opposite. But I do promise that God's plan is good. I promise God is there with you. I promise that no matter what kind of fear or disappointment or grief you find yourself in, you are not alone. God is there. And if all you have to say in that moment is, Jesus, I promise that God hears all the words you didn't say too.
So with that, guys, Reagan and I and all the staff at Junior High Camp want to say we love you. Thank you for coming to camp. Thank you for making part of it we did get to have be so special. We can't wait to see you soon. Fall retreat is right around the corner, November 6th through 8th. And then Katie, Erlock, and myself will be directors there. So we hope to see the people who was able to go. We want you guys to have a great summer, a great rest of your week, and God's peace be with you. Shalom, shalom.